The infamous Ultra Beast Guzzlord is making its return to Pokémon GO for the Halloween season, and this Pokémon is actually one of the easiest raid bosses that you can find in 5-star raids. Now, in order to defeat Guzzlord, you will need the exact right counters, and you will want to make sure you are best prepared. That's going to be the point of this video. I'm going to be telling you how you can defeat Guzzlord, even possibly soloing it. And then I'm also going to give you an analysis of this Pokemon as well. Alright, let's get right into it. How's it going, everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula. I hope you're having a good day and welcome to today's Pokemon GO video. Today it's going to be all about the Ultra Beast Guzzlord. This dark and dragon type Pokemon is very infamous within the Pokemon GO community, considering that it has insanely high HP, but its stats are abysmally low. So a lot of players do not know how to use this Pokemon. We'll get more into that later in my analysis, but first let's talk about how you could defeat this boss. Defeating Guzzlord is actually pretty straightforward. Considering that it is both a dark and dragon type, that means it's going to have a double weakness to fairy type raid damage. It's also going to have a weakness to bug types, dragon types, fighting types, and ice types. It's also going to have a double resistance to psychic types and a regular resistance to dark, electric, fire, ghost, grass, and water. The perfect IVs for Guzzlord is going to be 1650, and if it's weather boosted, it's going to be 2062. Guzzlord is going to be weather boosted by foggy weather and windy weather. Now, in order to defeat Guzzlord, you will need a raid group that consists of at least 2 to 3 trainers that are at least level 35, along with Pokemon that are also about level 35. This is of course assuming all the players are bringing their best fairy types. Now, if you want to challenge yourself, you could actually do it pretty easily with just one trainer in the raid group. This is because Guzzlord has that double weakness to fairy, and most of the fairy types that are out there are going to be some of the heaviest hitters in Pokemon GO. Speaking of which, let's go over the best counters right now. In order to defeat Guzzlord, make sure your raid group consists of Mega Gardevoir, Xerneas, Regular Gardevoir, Togekiss, and Zacian. If you want to consider budget counters, you could bring a raid group that consists of just Gardevoirs and Togekisses, and you'll be okay. Basically speaking, as long as you're bringing fairy types, you will have no problem taking down this boss. That double weakness to fairy type damage is crucial. It means Guzzlord is going to take triple damage from fairy type attacks, so make sure you're bringing your best fairy types and invest very heavily in Mega Gardevoir. That Pokemon is definitely going to be useful up against this boss. So there you have it. As long as you're bringing your best fairy types, you will have no problem against Guzzlord. Now, just like I said, this Pokemon can be soloed by any high-level player. As long as you're bringing a full team of fairy types, you can take down this boss no problem. Just think of it as another Deoxys attack form. The really nice thing is that you can actually do this without any XL Pokemon, Shadows, Legends, or even Megas. You could just go into it with a bunch of generic fairy types, and you'll still be able to defeat it. Okay, so now that we talked about how you can defeat Guzzlord, next let's get into an analysis of this Pokemon to see if it's even worth getting. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Guzzlord is a dark and dragon type Pokemon. We've already went over the weaknesses and resistances, but just keep in mind that Guzzlord is going to be pretty decent for PvP just based on the resistances alone. The base stats for Guzzlord are actually quite interesting. It has a base attack stat of 188, a base defense stat of 99, and a base stamina stat of 440. Now, just looking at these base stats, you could see that Guzzlord has insanely high stamina, but it also has insanely low defense. This makes it very interesting for PvP because the high stamina does make it quite tanky, but the low defense stat means it's going to take a lot more damage. The attack stats are not really that high either, so Guzzlord is never going to be a decent raid attacker. But in certain situations within PvP, you could actually make Guzzlord work. Speaking of which, let's go over the rank 1 IVs for Guzzlord. In the Great League, you will want one that is 1 attack, 13 defense, and 2 health. This is of course because it already has a lot of stamina, so you don't need high IVs in stamina or attack. Now, when it comes to the Ultra League, you will want one that is 1 attack, 15 defense, and 15 health. Again, Guzzlord is going to be really difficult to slot into a PvP team, but if you're able to make it work, it's definitely worth a try. Finally, let's go over the move pool for Guzzlord because it is actually really interesting. First and foremost, the fast attacks that Guzzlord can come with include Snarl and Dragon Tail. Both of these are very hard hitting moves, and they also benefit from stab. The only difference is that they do not necessarily do enough to make up for the low attack stat of Guzzlord. However, if you were to choose between either of them, I would go with Snarl, considering it does benefit from stab, and it also generates a lot of energy. Now, in terms of the charge attacks, it can come with either Dragon Claw, Brutal Swing, Sludge Bomb, and Crunch. Sludge Bomb is kind of interesting considering it could give Guzzlord a lot of type coverage, but I would go with Dragon Claw and Brutal Swing. Both of those moves are going to deal the most damage, and you really need that damage in order to make Guzzlord work. So yeah, overall, Guzzlord is one of the most interesting and unique Pokemon within Pokemon Go. It has really low defense and really low attack, but it has insanely high stamina. So in certain situations, this Pokemon might actually prove to be very effective. So yeah, there you have it. Guzzlord is a pretty decent Pokemon for the Ultra League, but outside of that, you're really not going to have any place to use this Pokemon. Like, it's never going to be good for raid battles, unfortunately. The stats are just way too low, and when it comes to the Master League, it's not going to meet that potential as well. And if you happen to get yourself one that's under 1500 for the Great League, then it might be worth using. But considering that there's even better Pokemon in the Great League that have either the Dark typing or the Dragon typing, it's going to kind of fall by the wayside. The Ultra League is really where it's going to be useful. But even then, there's going to be very few cases where you'll actually make it work. So yeah, overall, this Pokemon is essentially just a trophy. You're never going to be able to use this Pokemon effectively in any aspect of Pokemon Go, but it would be a cool shiny to have in your collection. So outside of that, there's really no point in maxing out a Guzzlord, so do keep that in mind. But yeah, in any case, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know your thoughts regarding Guzzlord down below. Have you been able to solo down this boss? Let me know if you have and what you did to get that to happen, and let's have a great discussion. And thank you so much for making it to this point in the video. If you ended up enjoying it, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if it's your first time here. And don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a quick shout out to all of my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to join my Patreon family, make sure you go and check out the links in the description below. For every person in my Patreon family, they get a permanent spot on my in-game friends list. So if you want to interact with me in some way within Pokemon Go, like with remote raids or the friendship system, then make sure you go and check out my Patreon. And if you want to support my channel non-monetarily, you could always do so by following me on social media. My handle is @Jinsula, and I'm on the following platforms. Alright, and that's going to be it. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.